Let's talk about Kas, anger. It's a big deal today, anger management and all that kind of stuff. Lesson 68. You find out where the desire for money comes from. The Rebbe says, "Call on Floshois to Avim or Mesavim the moment." Every soul, all the souls yearn for money, right? Just go out into the street and you find out. The moment they don't only want money, even to the person who has the money, people gravitate towards the wealthy people because he has money. Like we see openly, those who have money, he has many friends. They all go to him. They all become part of him. The joke is told of a guy, poor guy, a very wealthy guy who was nifta, and the poor guy was crying and crying. What do you cry? You worry his relatives. That's why I'm crying. Because of that, right? It happens, right? The idea is that people like a guy with money. Maybe they'll get something from it. Maybe they'll have something from it. Whatnot. Why is that? Why is there such a yearning for money? Why is there such a draw? Because the soul of a person comes from a very lofty place. Money comes from that same place where the soul is. And everything originates by Hashem, right? And it goes into the different oilamos, the different what do you call it, the higher worlds, whatever, until it just devolves, until it comes down to this world. So the soul and the money and practically everything else all come from that same place. So a person always goes to his roots, right? There was a book written many, many years ago called Roots, about a Strauss slave. Right, remember that book? Whatever, it was a whole big deal. But roots. Point is, a person who always goes to his roots. A lot of people today are seeking genealogy. Where am I from? So, roots. The root of the nefesh and the root of the mammon, of money, it's all the same root.
Yeah, but mammon or parnasa?
Huh?
Money or parnasa?
Money. Parnasa is money, and money is parnasa. But, if you have it, you're not driven, I won't say that, it's a wrong word, but you're not driven for the money or for the parnasa. Right? You get a guy like Elon Musk, he's driven for money. Everything, you got Bill Gates, or, all these guys, they're all driven for money. But the point is that the soul comes from that same place. If you have the moment, you have the parnasa. It's basically the same thing.
Why is it that the soul? Why is it necessary that the moment and the nefesh come from the same place?
Why does it have to be that way?
Yeah.
Very simple. Everything comes from Hashem Echad.
So it's not dafka moment. The same thing. So it's,
I said a lot of other things too. I said that
everything.
Before. Yeah. It all comes from one source.
So why are these two things more mishtayach? Why are these two things close?
Why do people gravitate to money? You go out in the street or you read the paper, everything is money. Money, 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 that's all they talk about, right? There's a Gemara in Brachos. Gemara says, Shalosh Mishmoros Havi Halayla. The night is divided into 3 watches, right? Okay? The first Mishmor, Chamor Noyer. A donkey, brays. Second Mishmor, Klovim Tzayakim. In the middle of the night, you'll hear dogs barking. Third Mishmora is the Isha Misaperis and Baila. A woman speaks to her husband, whatever, okay? Whatever goes on there. There are 3 Mishmoras. In lesson 1 in the Likutei, the second Cheder, Rebbe Nachman speaks about it, and he says, Chamor Noyer represents money. Because Yisocha Chamor Goren, and the Targum is Yisocha was very wealthy. So Chamor represents wealth. Klovim Tzoyakim represents eating, the taiva of eating, because Klovim Tzoyakim Hav. Klovim, the pasuk in Yeshaya, that the animals, the dogs, they bark, give. Isham, the Paris and Baila, represents the immorality desire that a person has. Okay? So Rosh Hashiva used to say, why is wealth compared to Chamor Noyer, a donkey that brays? He says, because the other 2 taivas, you don't hear people running through the streets, I'm hungry, I gotta eat, I gotta take a sandwich, give me something to eat, whatever. You also won't find people in the street, going immorality. It's kind of a quiet thing that you do, right? When it comes to money, Chamor Noyer. Everyone brags about money. You talk about money. Money. It's ingrained in the nefesh. Nefesh, by the way, if you look in the Parshas Chayesora, the beginning, where it says that Avram was asking the Bnei Ches, he was asking them for Mars HaMachpelah, he says to them, Im yesh es nafshechem, if it is with your desire. That's the way Rashi explains it. Nefesh represents the desires of a person. So all the desires are rooted on high. But money is something that's spoken about unabashedly. People just talk about it all the time, right? Everyone's talking about it. No one is concealing their desire for the money. Okay? Yeah, it's in your blood. It's in your blood. But in Yesh Es Nafshechem, there's nefesh, which is the soul, and there's nefesh, which is your ratzon, your desire. It's there. It's part of your makeup. It's part of your nefesh, right? You have to learn to control it, right? And break the evil desire for it. I mean, money, as the Rebbe will say later on, is very important. It's very good. You can do a tremendous amount with stuff. You can build yeshivas. You can build hospitals. You can help poor people. You can do so much good with money. It's incredible. It's incredible. But there's an aspect I want. By the Gemara says, Haman, by the Gemara says in Koheles, it says a pasuk, L'odom nosan lesof lichnos, to gather. Right? The Gemara says that's Haman, who wanted to gather wealth. Right? The average person wants money for money's sake, not for the kedusha of it, not for the positive aspects that you can do with money. Okay?
Doesn't Rabbeinu say maybe it's Teresamach? Doesn't Rabbeinu say maybe it's Teresamach, the Moshe Rabbeinu had Psalacha, he had the extra.
Right, he was very wealthy, yeah.
From there, in order
But
to
he
understand
says-
Torah, you need
He
this.
says there, Im ein kemach ein Torah. If you don't have parnosa, you won't be able to learn. Your mind is occupied. All right? One of the Amorim is in Masechet Menachos. One of the Amorim left to Beit English. Well, why? What happens is I don't have bread on the table. Right? An Amorim. We're not talking about Jack or Jew or anyone else you want. We're talking about an Amorim, right? But he walked out of it because he didn't have Yishuv Adas, because he didn't have money. That day he was empty, right? On the other hand, when you think about the greatness of money and what you can do with it, in lesson 60, which you mentioned, right, the Rebbe says over there, the money is necessary for the hispointness of Torah, to be able to understand the depth of Torah. Just like in Ein Kemach, Ein Torah, if there's no Parnosa, there's no Torah, you can't get to the real depths of Torah unless you have, and that's why all the Nevi'im were wealthy. Right? The Gemara says that. All the Nevi'im. You can't have a guy walking around, the sky is falling down, when he's tattered clothing, he has nothing, right? Guy is wealthy, they look up to him, right? All the Nevi'im were wealthy, but that wealth wasn't because of anything that they wanted, you know, an extra Jaguar or Rolls Royce. It wasn't that. It was because they wanted the hispoidinus of Torah to go into the Torah, to be able to go to the depths of Torah in order to be able to understand what Hashem wants. Okay?
There were a lot of poor people, a lot of poor Tanayim, Barakiva, I mean, a lot of them didn't have any money. And they reached the depths of Torah.
They didn't. They got to Torah, but they didn't get to what's called the hispoidinus of Torah, the absolute depth of Torah.
Barakiva?
Rebbe Chaim became very wealthy.
Later on.
Later on.
But
He learned, he studied, the Gemara in the Dor says 6 things are what brought Rebbe Kiva wealth. Right? 6 different happenings in his life brought him the wealth that he had. But Rebbe Kiva was compared to Moshe Rabbeinu. The Sifri, that's from Reb Shimon ben Yechoya, Sefer Bamidbar and Dvar. At the end of Zois HaBrocha, it says, "V'leikom novi oid b'Yisrael k'Moshe." No other prophet was able to get up to the level of Moshe Rabbeinu. There was no prophet that reached the levels of Moshe Rabbeinu. But the Sifri says, "Avol Chacham Kam." A wise man did rise like Moshe Rabbeinu. His name was Rebbe Akiva. But he had Moshe Rabbeinu who was wealthy. But Rebbe Akiva was also very wealthy, extremely wealthy.
it was later on,
It was later on, okay? He struggled to get to where he got on a regular level. Then he got to the higher level. Okay? We're okay now? So far, so good?
What's the Maramakan for?
Huh?
What's the Maramakan that all the Nevi'im were wealthy?
And what?
All the Nevi'im were wealthy.
It's a Gemara, I don't recall where right now. It starts with Omois. Omois said, "Ki boiker ani uboiles shikmin." I have trees, I have flocks, and whatnot. Now, on here, Rashi brings, and it's a Gemara, I just don't recall where. Maybe I can use that Corona, and since then I can use that as an excuse to memory when. But it's brought to, he was extremely wealthy, almost, right? He used to stutter a little, but he was extremely wealthy. Okay? We're okay? Ki b'vadei hascholas hamoker shemishtalshu misham hamomoy. Definitely, the place where money begins to devolve from, ub'vadei b'chine kedusha b'shefa kodesh. It has to be a tremendous, holy, and shefa, bounty, a tremendous bounty. That's where the money comes from. The achakach is gashing the matter, and like everything else, it gets to be materialized down here. Kederech ha'ishtalshus, like everything that devolves down to this world, when it's have a moment, and it becomes money. Yalkein hanefesh te'evel l'momen. Therefore, the soul desires money because it's rude. Machmash hanefesh bo mimokim she'amomen bo misham. Ach tzorech livli lihis avos l'hamomen. But you have to be careful not to desire the money. K'mavur kvar kama pa'amin, as is explained many times, goydel gnus ta'avos momen. How evil it is, avarice, when I seek money, I search for money, I want money. That's a very evil trait. Rakli is avois v'lev hamokom she'amomin bo u'mishtalshem b'sham kanal. Just to love and desire the place where the money comes from, which is our heart, which is Hashem. Ubevchina zu Rebbe Chaim Ashir. And in this category, when you look for the source of the money, Gemara says that Rebbe was Mechaber Ashir. Rebbe Yehuda Hanossi, he honored those who were wealthy. He gave honor. Rebbe himself, who also brought the Torah to Am Yisrael, the Mishnah and everything like that, right? Rebbe himself was incredibly wealthy. He was more wealthy than he was more wealthy than the king of Rome. He was wealthier than the king of Rome, right? So Rebbe Mechaber Ashirim, Machma sheyesh lehem momon shubo mivok mavoya kanal. They have money that was sent as a blessing from on high. Okay? Any questions on this till now?
What is it when it says you have to learn the place where it comes from? Does that just mean the Rebbeinu Shalom? Or is there?
Oh Hashem, I'm almost 77 and I don't hear that well.
Sorry, when it says you have to love the place where the money comes from, does that just mean the Rebbeinu Shalom? Or does that mean is something more nuanced?
It means the Rebbeinu Shalom, it means the source on high, it means the source of Kedusha. In Kabbalah, you have 10 spheres, right? The Shefa, it comes from Hashem, it's given over to the Keter, right? From the Keter, it's given over to Chochmah. Chochmah, it's given to Bina, and then to Chesed, Gvura, Tiferes, and so on, till it comes down to us, okay? So eventually, you're going to want the source of where the money comes from. Ultimately, everything goes back to Hashem. Ultimately, there isn't a thing in this world that you can't bind up with Hashem. Like the Gemara in Avodah Zarah, for example. The Gemara in the beginning of Avodah Zarah says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is mefarnes b'chol yom. He gives panosa every single day, from Kaneh Re'emim to the giant rams that are in mountains. They're very big, giant rams. They have to eat a lot. Until the small kinim, the lice. Remember the lice that used to go to school with us every day? Right? So the Eibishter feeds the lice too. Right? He feeds everything. Everything ultimately goes back to Hashem. Everything is always Hashem. There is nothing that is not Hashem. Right? The question is, how far up on the ladder are you that you could really relate directly to Hashem? That's your question, I think. Right? In other words, we know everything is Hashem. We know that everything comes from Hashem. That's simple. I mean, it's always that way. But, what about us? How close are we to Hashem that we can get it? Okay? Let's take another lesson, Likutei MoHaRan, for example, lesson 240. Rebbe Nachman says that the person is always looking for money, is looking for shefa, right? And we need it. Every day, the Zohar says, every day has its own shefa. Every day has its own parnasa. Today you make, today you lose, today you make, the stock market goes up, every day is a different shefa that comes down to this world. Okay? Now, what happens to that shefa? We don't always see it, do we? Right? We don't always see the profits and the blessing that comes with every day. Well, as it comes down to this world, as it descends, there's a lot of evil, the Sitra Achra, that stands in the way and diverts. You know, it's like you have waters, right? And you want it to go in a certain place, you have to divert the flow of water to that place. The Sitra Achra works every day to divert the shefa. So sometimes we get it, sometimes not. Sometimes we have this trouble or whatever. When you start thinking of that, you start, where's the shefa? Where do I get it? Well, everything descends from Keser, Chochmah, etc., till Malchus. When we accept the Malchus of Shemayim, we're connecting with Malchus, and that's where the shefa is being dispersed from. And that's where, if we have mitzvahs, we can get it. If we have averis, then it becomes spread out among the Sitra Achra, and they divert that shefa from us. So it comes here, it comes there. There's all different ways how the shefa will get to us. Where does Malchus get the shefa from? The sphere above it is called Yesod, right? Yesod is where? Yesod represents the tzaddik. So Rebbe Nachman says there in that lesson that the closer you are to the tzaddik, the closer you are to getting your shefa. So if that's the case, the tzaddikim, those talmidim of the tzaddik should be the wealthiest people. They're closest to the tzaddik.
We didn't say that, Lashon, that if you're closer to the tzaddik, you're closer to your shefa?
What?
If you're closer to your tzaddik, then you're closer to the shefa. Where does it say that?
The tzaddik is the yesod. Lesson 240 in the MoHaRan. Okay? The tzaddik is called yesod. Right? And because of that, the shefa comes through the tzaddik. In Mishlei, there's a pasuk, tzaddik yesod olam. The tzaddik is the foundation of the world. Right? Everything comes through yesod. Everything comes down to Malchus from yesod. So logically, anyone who's attached to the tzaddik, to the Torah, which is even above the tzaddik, right? So they should be the wealthiest people. And that's the way it will be when Mashiach comes. Okay, when Mashiach comes, it'll be that way. But what happens till then? The shefa is diverted. But when a person is attached to the tzaddik, logically he should get all that shefa. The reason he doesn't is that because his neshama sees a light that is much greater than the shefa of money. And he's willingly throwing away the shefa that's due to him in order to accept that greater light, that higher light of Hashem that's coming to him through the tzaddik too. The tzaddik is the one who disperses the Torah. The tzaddik is the one who gives us the chiyas, the lifeline to Hashem. And there are people who would rather choose to be connected closer to Hashem than to have the money. So that's why a lot of people who are close to the tzaddik do not have the money. Okay? Any questions?
How do you get both?
Huh?
How do you get both?
Yeah. You ever hear of humility?
Of what? Of?
The Rambam Pasha says, "Aroitza lahashir yatzpi." Somebody who wants to become wealthy should face north when he prays. Aroitza lahachkim yadrim. The one who wants to become wise should face south. Right? Why is that? Because in the temple, the shulchan, the table which had all the bread on it, the lechem aponim, was on the north side of the entrance to the Kodesh HaKadoshim. The menorah, which represents the light of Torah and wisdom, was on the south side. Right? So if you're in the left side, if you're in the north side, you can't be in the south. If you're in the south side, you can't be in the north. Right? So you can't have both. You either have wisdom or you have Torah. Except if you're extremely humble. If you're humble, you don't take up any space. You can be north and south at the same time. Right? That's lesson 162 here in the Likutei MoHaRan. But the idea behind it is you can get it. And how do we know? Moshe Rabbeinu. Ish Moshe Onav Ma'od. He was the wisest and he was the wealthiest. Rebbe Yehuda Hanossi, who brought out the Mishnah, he was wise, but he was also extremely wealthy. the Gemara says at the end of Sotah that Lotisne Anova, it says when who was Nifta? When Rebbe was Nifta, right? So Anivus, humility, was lost. Gemara says, Rav Yosef said, don't teach because I'm humble, right? Is that a humble person saying I'm humble?
Yeah.
Right? But you have to know, Rebbe Nachman explains, you have to know who you are and still be humble. You could be the wealthiest, you could be the smartest, you could be all that. You could be a big Rosh Hashiva, yeah. But if you're not humble, they're not going to feel it.
Moshe Rabbeinu himself, he write, Vaish Moshe Anav Mod,
Yeah.
he write himself.
Moshe Rabbeinu was one who
Moshe
wrote the
Rabbeinu.
Torah. He wrote
Yeah.
Moshe
I
Anav
don't know,
Mod.
it's more also.
Who he was.
Yeah, he knew who he was,
Yeah.
right?
Is this connection to Nishmas Yisrael and money, does that have anything to do with why when they go to that tzaddik bring a pidyon?
No. The pidyon is a redemption, right? You do kaparas Erev Yom Kippur. Why? Whatever was supposed to come on me should go on this chicken. Or if you don't use chickens, the money that goes for tzedakah, right? Or some people use fish. In Eretz Yisrael, I've seen people. No, you can't. Just whatever was supposed to come on me should go on this. I came into homes, various homes, they had bathtubs filled with water and fish swimming there until Erev Yom Kippur when they did kaparas. But the idea behind it is that a pidyon is you're taking something that I'm suffering with, right? I'm asking the tzaddik redeem me. I give the money to the tzaddik. I am asking him to redeem me, take me out of this sorrow, and bring me into a place of salvation. That's a pidyon.
That's the pshat
So
that
that's the
Reb Nachman said about himself. Reb Nachman said about himself that Ani Pella, Nishmasi Pella, he was able to say certain things about himself because he knew who he was.
Yeah, you knew it. The idea is to know who you are, right? And be able to say what you say, do what you do. Mean the Baal Shem HaKodesh, right? Take the Baal Shem HaKodesh, all the miracles that he performed. He's a miracle worker, right? But he's called the Baal Shem Toiv because he did good, and he wasn't arrogant about it. He wasn't haughty about what he did. He did it. There's the Dega Machne Ephraim, which is his grandson, Ephraim of Sidikov. He's buried next to him, right at his feet in measurements. Dega Machne Ephraim said when he was a young kid, he was sitting on his grandfather's lap, Baal Shem Tov's lap, Friday night. All of a sudden, the Baal Shem Tov got very attached, like very dovek in Hashem. And then he said, Od Shverach by Shabbos Kodesh, I swear, it was Friday night, I swear by Shabbos that there's a person who hears Torah, not mipi malach, not from an angel, not from a Saraf, which is a much higher angel, not from Eliyahu Hanavi, but from Hashem himself, right? And every moment, he's in danger of being sent down to the lowest levels of Gehenna because of Geiger.
Wow.
He was saying it about himself. Right? You can hear Torah from Hashem, directly from Hashem, but no Geiger.
So this is similar to Reb Nachman. He was letting us know
Yeah,
the
Nachman.
levels that somebody could reach.
Yeah, Rizal talks about things like that.
Is it for us to learn the levels that one could reach?
No, it's not easy. I don't think it's easy to reach that level of humility, right? But you can try.
Aren't there a lot of poor people, a lot of humble people that don't have any money?
Yeah, we said it just before. That people they see a light greater than money, Money is a great light. It's a shefa. It's from heaven. It's a blessing. But there are people who see even a higher light, and they're willing to forego the money for that higher and greater light.
What about when we dive toward the east, so we're between the north and the south, you don't.
No, yeah, but when you're facing Shemon Esrei, you can a little bit,
Oh, I see.
or a little bit to the north, a little bit, right? And that's the Gemara of Rav Masra. It's in Masechet Nedarim, by the way. Rav, the thing about the wealthy, I think that Lamed Ches, I'm not sure.
The Nevi'im are wealthy?
Huh?
The Nevi'im are wealthy?
What?
The Nevi'im are wealthy?
Yeah,
Is Nedarim?
I think it's Nedarim, I think it's Daf Lamed Ches, I'm not sure, but I think so. Okay, Vida, no. Sharoi Shekol Yisrael Yihi Elam Momen. It's worthy that every Jew should have money, right? Hashem promised Avram Avinu, go to where the land that I'm going to show you, you'll have wealth, right? He wasn't promising them poverty. He was promising Avram for all his generations wealth. And you see, when they left Egypt, they left with wealth, right? So, ach yesh mida acha shemafsedes uma'abedes mehem hamomen. There is one attribute, one trait that people have that it causes them to lose their money. Vehi mida ra umaguna. It's a very terrible trait, and it's very despicable. Shekosher me'odi notzel mimena. And it's still, as bad as it is, it's very, very difficult to avoid this trait. Even if one wants to save himself and control himself so that he doesn't have this trait, and it's this moment, especially because he wants money, and this trait loses the money, he shouldn't lose the money. This trait overpowers the person when he's young, when he's a child. And that trait is what loses for him the money that he should have had. And that terrible trait is anger. Through anger. Do you ever hear of terrible twos? Right? Right? Kids, you ever see a kid throw a temper tantrum? Right?
A lot of terrible 13 through 18-year-olds. Terrible 13 through 18-year-olds.
I didn't have some.
13 through 18.
Even
Teenagers.
worse, yeah.
Teenagers.
Yeah, right, but it starts when we're kids, right? It starts then, and we start losing whatever shefa we're supposed to have as adults. We start losing it from the beginning. Because from the root where money descends from, it's the same root of anger, that same root. Therefore, the Yetzer Hara, when he sees that this person is supposed to get money, then he comes down and he brings the person to anger. You have all of a sudden something gets you angry, right? The Rebbe says, from the money that you're supposed to get at that moment, you're incited to become angry.
We're talking about, if you have internal anger but you don't express it, is it,
If you control the anger,
yeah,
you're going to get the money.
it's in the money.
Right? If you don't control it, did you ever hear them say when he gets angry, he lost it?
Yeah.
Now you know when he lost it.
Okay.
Right? Ki hakas hu mamish bechinas achas v'in erecha v'mamah. Anger is the exact same thing as money. We said before the nefesh, right? We'll talk about the nefesh in a minute.
The same two letters has a kesef and it has a kaf and a sama. Same
Yeah,
same two letters.
the pay is different.
Okay.
Pay is your mouth, what you do with your cows. Mokim shoyna eim shum hefesh. There is no difference at the source between money and the nefesh and kaas. Kishneim yodem migvuros, they come down from the side of gvura, which is strength. And shochem mimokim echad mamash, they both come from the same place. B'chinas mitzofoin zohav yoseh. Right? Money comes from the north. Uchsiv mitzofoin tiposach haroah. And from the north, Yirmiyah said about the land of Bovel, they were going to invade Eretz Israel. Mitzofoin from the north is going to come the evil. So money comes from, Zav comes from the Tzofoin, and so does the Rav. We said before that you want money, you go to the north, right, to Shulchan. Eine bechinas kaas. Anger is evil, k'mo shekosef, v'hoser kaas milibcha, v'have ro'ah mibsorecha. Get rid of evil from your heart, and you'll get rid of evil from your flesh. Because the person is angry, his whole body gets incited. The whole body is involved with that anger, right? And it shakes him up, and he loses it, literally loses it. Now, the Rebbe says like this, why is it that money and anger are the same? Money, wealth, is like a person's wall. It's a wall that protects him, right? He's got money, he can build a wall around the house, people can't get in, right? He can buy protection, as they call it in Israel. But when you have the money, you have protection. You can afford the protection, you can afford the security and whatnot. The wealth of a rich person is his wall of strength, and it's a wall that's very high and tall that people can't breach. Anger destroys that wall. A city that's wide open, that has no walls around it to protect it, right, is the same as a person who has no control over his anger, over his spirit. We see that choyma, on one end, is a wall that protects the wealth. On the other hand, anger destroys that wall. The Abal Dover and the Yetzer Hara, Shiraya, the other Mishtalsh, the Shefesh moment, when he sees that a person is going to get money, Shur B'chinas Choyma Canal, which is a wall, a protective wall, Azay Oisoloi Mizeh Hishtalshalas Kas. From that which is devolving towards him, which is Shefa, which is bounty, it becomes anger. Mazmul Dover Lichois, in its kalkel B'chinas Choyma the Kas Canal, and it destroys that wall. Ki Akas v'Yamomen He B'chinas Achas. Because anger and wealth are one, Shorish HaShalshus, from the source, from the root. V'yalkein b'kal mahapech lo yashtalsh l'shever shel momoin shlu b'chinas choyma l'kas shu ha'hefech choyma v'oislo b'choyma chema shemahapech ha'momoin l'kas kanal. The word in Hebrew for wall is a choyma, ches Vav Mem Hey. The word in Hebrew for anger is chema. Ches Mem Hey. Right? They're similar. Their root is similar, their spelling is similar. You either get a chema, protective wall, or you have chema, which destroys that protective wall. Mahapech hamomin lekas kenal. Kitchila shorish hashtalshlus hamomin umokum shanefesh bo misham. Because where money comes from, and kas is the same shorish, same root. So that's the place where the nefesh comes from. V'nema al momin shel schir yoim k'mo shekosav b'nafshenu novi lachmeinu. With our souls, we will bring our bread. Why? Because my soul on high is where my bread comes from. It's one. Therefore, the soul desires very much money.
Aren't there angry people that have money?
Yeah, we'll come to that in a minute. And when you have anger, you lose your soul. A person literally tears up his nefesh when he has anger. Most of the CEOs are full of anger. They're the ones who have the hundreds, the millions, or whatever. Most of them are, do this, do that, do that, and they scream and yell at everyone, whatever the case is. The wealthy people, they run their business that way. They're always uptight, they're always under stress and whatnot. How do they have money? So, in the beginning of the lesson, Rebbe Nachman says that money is called Shefa Kodesh. It's a holy bounty, right? If these guys have anger, right, it's not holy. It's bounty. They have plenty of money, but they don't have any nachas from their money. They don't. You take a look at any of these people, right? You have these superstars, super athletes. Take a look at the way they act, right? Hockey, they beat each other. Football, whatever. Baseball, take a look at the very wealthy people. Take a look at the CEOs of a lot of these companies, the way they act and whatnot. There's no nachas. I need more. I want more. I gotta have more. Jeff Bezos, right? He's wealthy, right? Well, look at, did he just divorce? No?
Yeah.
Jeff Bezos just divorced, right? Can't get along with his own wife, right? Right? She has billions, right? He says the first guy to reach $200 billion or something like that. He's wealthy, yeah, but he can't get along with his own wife under the same roof, right? Right? So she took $1 billion from him, $100 billion. So what's the point? The point is that there's no nachas in the money, right? Khal says, "Toiv maloi kaf nachas, maloi chofnayim, obol u'us ruach." Better to have one hand full of nachas than to have two full hands of anger. Obol, anger and work, stress and all that, right? You have people satisfied. Ezu Oshir, who was called a wealthy man, right? Asomech b'chelkoi, somebody who is happy with his lot, right? Now there are people who are very poor. Thank God the story is told of there was a very, very wealthy man, and Reb Zusha, right? Reb Zusha of Anapoli. So he used to give Reb Zusha money all the time. One time he came to Reb Zusha, and Reb Zusha was not there. Where'd he go? He went to his Rebbe, the Maggid of Mizrich. He says, Reb Zusha has a Rebbe? So he went to the Maggid of Mizrich, and he started giving him his money. This is the Rebbe, Reb Zusha, I had such wealth, I had such bounty. The Maggid, shortly on him. Okay, I started giving the money to the Maggid, and he started losing his money. He comes to the Maggid, and he asks him what happened. I gave to Reb Zusha, I got wealthier and wealthier. I started giving you, I'm getting poorer and poorer. What's happening? He says, I don't know the answer, go to Reb Zusha. Right? It was him that you took the money away from. He goes to Reb Zusha, and he asks him, Reb Zusha, what happened here? He said, listen, as long as you didn't care to who you gave the money, you gave it to me. What am I? You gave it to me. You didn't care. Heaven didn't care to give you also. But now you're careful to give only to the Maggid of Mizrich, right? Why is that? Because someone came to the Maggid and he asked him, what do you know, how can I get a bracha? To see what a bracha really is go to Reb Zusha. He went to Reb Zusha. Reb Zusha had nothing in his house. It was poverty, real poverty. And he asked Reb Zusha, the Maggid said I should come here to find out about wealth and whatnot. He says, I see you have nothing. He says, I'm not missing anything. I have everything that I need. What's your problem? Right? That was the Rebbe Reb Zusha. Right? All this kind of things with the money. So you can have people who have thousands, millions, billions, right? But they don't have nachas. They're always looking for more, always trying to get more and whatnot. And Hashem should send a blessing to everyone. The Rebbe says, every Jew should have that parnasa. Yeah, it was promised to Avram Avinu for all his descendants, they should have wealth. The Medrash says that a guy once said to Rebbe Kiva that Hashem hates you guys because you're all poor, right? Yeah, you're all poor. Hashem hates you, doesn't want to give you any bounty. Rebbe Kiva said to him, Yo'eh ani yusel Yisrael kenesan aduma b'sus lovan. He says poverty is very befitting for a Jew, like a red reins in a white horse. It looks majestic, right? Poverty is why he says that's the case. Why the Jews so poor is because Hashem loves the aniyim, and He wants to give the rich a mitzvah to help the poor people. That He does, right? There have been poverty and impoverished people throughout the generations, and we're still here, right? Because the Jewish nation does tzedakah like nobody else does. The tzedakah that goes on in Am Yisrael is incomparable to anything that goes on in the world. There's nothing that they do that could be, there are a lot of nice charities here and there, where they save the whales, save the tigers, real important charities. But they have so many different, and nothing compares to what a Jew does for another Jew. How they give, and they give, and they give, we say Motzi Shabbos, v'yiten l'cha ha'elakim, v'yiten l'cha, with a vav, yiten l'cha. What's v'yiten l'cha? Chazal say yiten, v'yachzor v'yiten. You give, and you give again, and you give again, and you give it. That's the Jewish nation. The tzedakah that the Jewish nation gives is mamish incredible. They should all be gebenched. They shouldn't have to, people come to my door in Eretz Yisrael. Right? I'm far from wealthy. I'm Baruch Hashem, I'm very wealthy. But I'm far from them. I don't have the money. They knock on the door. There's Ehrlich guys, they want to marry off a kid. Right? Every time I close the door after I give whatever I give, I say, Hashem, is this what you want from your people? They should have to go and humiliate themselves and go knock on doors. They can't marry off a kid. What's with you? Why don't you give us? Give Khal Yisrael, they shouldn't have to suffer. And they suffer. But Khal Yisrael gives. And people marry off their children. There are families with 10 children, right? They don't have enough money to marry off one. And even if I live in Israel, right, the salaries that we get are not really enough that you can put aside money to marry off 5, 6 kids. It's not difficult enough to marry off one child. And they marry off 10. How do they marry off 10 kids? Because Am Yisrael is so special. They give, and they give again, and they give again. Right? And by the way, in lesson 13 in the Likutei MoHaRan, Rebbe Nachman says there very clearly that if you give tzedakah, right, not only do you break that desire for avarice, you don't desire the money, you'll have the money, you'll get the money. The tzedakah brings you the shefa. The tzedakah brings you whatever bounty that you'll have. So if you give more, you get more. Lashon Shulchan Aruch and Hilchot Tzedakah, the oilam le'ani adam minat tzedakah. Nobody ever got poor by giving charity.
Does giving tzedakah protect you from kas?
Yeah, that's what Rebbe Nachman says in lesson 13. You give tzedakah, it protects you from the charoi naf, from the anger. It protects you from the charoi naf, the anger of Hashem. And since the anger of Hashem is mitigated, so your kas is also mitigated, right? It happens, it all works together. Because if we arouse charoi naf, we arouse anger. There's anger in the world. People suffer. COVID, right? It wasn't very mechubatik. It wasn't very honorable, this COVID, right? But it was there, right? But when we give tzedakah, we mitigate the decrees, so there's less anger. We're able to mitigate the degrees and bring down the shefa, the bounty of Hashem. Okay? So far, so good? Now, this last line over here, Rebbe Nachman brings here, the Alkei Nefesh brings how that the soul desires money, and when you have kas, you lose the money, because it's called, the pasuk says, Toref Nafsho B'Yapoy. He tears his soul with his anger. What is that? What do you mean he tears his soul up? His soul was desire. His soul was the money. But the anger tore up that soul. What is that? The Arizal, the Zohar says, first of all, the Zohar in Parshas Vayakov explains, when a person gets angry, that anger tears his soul. Toref nafshoy b'yapli. With his anger, he tears up his soul. No other sin tears up your soul. No other sin. Anger tears up your soul. It rips it. Literally tears it apart.
Gaiva doesn't do that?
No. Gaiva, you're left without Hashem. Mother says that you have Gaiva. Hashem says you and I can't live together. Right? But it doesn't mean that you tore up your soul. Anger, the Zohar explains. The Arizal goes further in the Shar Ruach HaKodesh, and he explains that when a person gets angry, he tears up his soul. It's actually his soul is replaced with a soul from the Sitra Achra, from the other side, from the Tumah. So now, whatever he's doing, this is so frightening. Whatever he does, he's supporting the Sitra Achra. His soul is from the Sitra Achra, and therefore, any mitzvah he does, that good is given over, like the bounty that's given over, that bounty is given over to the Sitra Achra.